Kushala Daora. That one's a mouthful. Crow said. Okay then, how about Kush for a shorter name? Ruby suggested. No. All of the adults, plus Ruby's team and even Cinder shouted at once, making Ruby jump a bit from the sudden reaction. I will say, though, it does look quite majestic and powerful. Perhaps I would have won my duel with Salem if I had that on my side. Ojpin noted. Only one way to find out, I suppose. Ironwood stated. I am rather impressed, though. If I were to think of the word dragon, this creature is what would come to mind. Winter stated. So let's stop talking about it and start hearing about it. Yang declared, Katana nodding and playing the video. The video opened to a rather dire scene of a young woman holding her dog outside with intense winds blowing and a tornado visible in the background, as well as an image of the Kushala Daora flying around in the background, stomping and yelling to a cellar where her family was likely taking cover. She decided this was futile and ran back inside. However, no sooner than she entered the house, the windows and their frames were knocked inward and smacked her in the back of the head, causing her to fall onto the bed, unconscious, everything going black. Everyone was quite surprised at this opening and winced when the girl was knocked out. Ouch. Emerald said sympathetically. Well, sucks to be her. Coco said. Perhaps a bit more tact, Coco? She could have a serious concussion or some other form of injury. Ren told her. So, that dragon's strong enough to fly around in a tornado? That's pretty impressive. Blake praised. I have a feeling it's doing more than simply flying in the tornado. Pyrrha stated. A frozen mountain peak was then shown as Rage began to speak. Hello then, fellow hunters. Today we talk the steel dragon, Kushala Daora. The Lord of the Winds, he is one hell of a specimen, clad in steel armor, shimmering from head to toe. It's exactly as tough as it looks and it weighs a bloody ton. But armed with one of the largest pairs of wings of all monsters, he powers effortlessly through the air, chasing storms wherever they go, appearing in a flash and causing carnage in his wake. Rage declared as the dragon was eventually shown walking proudly and confidently across the mountain peak, before looking around as it sensed danger, turning and finding what it deemed to be the source of the danger and letting out a menacing roar. An actual metal dragon. That's so cool. Ruby said. And it can still fly. That's one tough lizard. Young agreed. Penny was in disbelief at this. But that would be impossible. The sheer weight of its metal body should be too great to allow it to get any form of substantial lift to fly into the air, let alone keep itself there. It's impossible. Does not compute. Penny said, short-circuiting. Penny? The Atlesians shouted. What do we do? Weiss asked. Maybe we need to turn her off and on again. John. Take off your shirt. Ruby instructed, pulling off John's hoodie to reveal his rather plain body underneath. Penny's eyes seemed to darken at this. Now you, Weiss. Ruby cried out, lifting her partner's shirt to reveal her bra-covered chest. Small as it was, it seemed to do the trick and Penny returned to normal. Salutations. She greeted. It worked. Ruby cried triumphantly. But most importantly, he's got an adorable little bronze-tipped nose. Rage gushed as a close-up on Kushala's face did indeed show its nose was bronze, making it look rather cute despite being a terrifying elder dragon, especially when accompanied with Rage's version of Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer. Oh my word, that nose does look adorable. Delvet said in a loving tone. Ah, it almost make him look like he has a cold. Nora said in a baby tone. Maybe it's starting to rust? That probably happens, right? John asked. Kushala Daora, then, is, well, as an elder dragon, to be respected and feared. He is fiercely intelligent, and wherever he goes, storm does reign. Whether he is the conjurer of such virulent weather, or simply its harbinger, is as of yet unknown to the guild. Does Kushala himself summon the lashing hail, pelting rain, the grey swirls consuming the very sky, or does he simply know that in such an atmosphere, he reigns unchallenged and as such is only brazenly in the open when he feels so secure? The latter would make sense as of yet, there has been no way to show how Kushala Daora would have such control over the environment around it. Rage explained as a hunter was seen walking through another frozen location, before suddenly, the wind and snows greatly picked up, almost seeming like a blizzard, before Kushala flew past several times to rattle the hunter, after which he shot a massive wave of condensed wind shot towards the hunter, who was blasted back by it, getting up just in time just to see Kushala part the icy mist around the area as growled at him. A dragon most comfortable when in a storm? Fascinating. Most other flying creatures know storms are the worst time for them. Glinda said, fascinated. Well, if he definitely creates the storms, it makes sense. Neo said. I'm more curious as to the method of how exactly it would make these storms. Ozpin said. Yeah, that could be a bit of a downer if your pet dragon makes a storm everywhere you go. Crow agreed. I'd rather not have them around if they're going to ruin perfect napping weather. Rin said in annoyance. The new world complicates matters when it comes to this debate. When the brave hunters there saw Kushala Daora, they noted that strangely, he was quite calm, passive almost, content to observe and wait. Unless, of course, you play his least favorite song. Rage explained as Alia was shown walking around the monster, admiring the metal dragon as it sat peacefully and merely observed her in content, looking like the ultimate symbol of power, elegance and dignity. At least before she fired a flash pod in the beast's face, causing it to roar in surprise and anger. It looks so proud and powerful and even has a type of elegance to it. You would almost think it's a statue for Atlas. Winter stated. It would certainly be a fitting icon for our kingdom. Weiss agreed. Oh please. The last thing your people need is a new symbol to inflate your already massive egos. Emerald countered. Yeah, if anything a statue of Kushala should be given to another kingdom, so that they can feel mighty for once. Coco sided with the mint-haired girl, the two fist-bumping without even looking. The sad part is Emerald and Coco aren't wrong. Blake admitted. Ah, but why would Alia attack it like that? It didn't do anything. Delvin asked, a bit upset at the on-screen huntress. That may be one of the worst betrayals I've ever seen. Definitely top 10. Cinder agreed. 1. Whether this be a change in temperament due to perhaps a nearing of death, or the fact the rich bioenergy is keeping them somewhat placid, or a simple lack of territory to call their own and thus defend is as of yet unknown. But it is clear, compared to the psychopathic, on-site slaughter caused by the old world Kushalas, it is a stark contrast indeed. Rage explained as Alia was shown with the Kushala Daora once again calmly and passively observing her as she walked around it, occasionally being pushed back by the wind surrounding it if she stepped too close, before the huntress was shown in the old world, facing off against a much darker-looking and exponentially more aggressive Kushala Daora, which roared and charged her. Nearing death? That Kushala will die soon? Penny asked sadly. You see, during the Elder Crossing, old elder dragons flocked to the new world to die and deposit their bioenergy in the rotten vale where Valhazak lives to supply it with the energy, allowing for the creation of new ecosystems, like the Coral Highlands. So a decent number of elder dragons are there to die, yes, but surely there have to be some that simply live in the new world. I highly doubt they're all there to die. Katana explained. Still, that's quite the change in attitude from place to place. James said, shocked. Well, hey, at least we know we don't have to panic whenever we see one. Yang reminded them. But what else is interesting is on the Elder's Recess, Kushala Daora can be found brazenly in the open with nary a storm cloud in sight. Is it choosing not to summon it, or is it a case of simply one not currently brewing? This is further complicated by Kushala Daora's scene in the ancient forest, where the trees are shaken with the gale force winds and rattled with the pelting rain pouring down from the heavens. The truth, then, remains a mystery. Does Kushala follow the storm, or does Kushala control it? In either case, his presence is known to be an omen of a village about to be decimated by the wrath of on high. Rage declared as Alia was seen standing in front of a relaxing Kushala yet again, although this time in the forest during a massive rainstorm, with the dragon seemed perfectly content and, even yawning as if the harsh weather wasn't even a thing. The students all looked to Yang as soon as they heard that. "Well, that's for jinxing it," Neo said. She giggled nervously and shrugged as they glared at her. "She's got a point, kiddo. Never say anything before you hear the full story. You may say something you regret in the meantime," Crow warned his eldest niece. "There's always be a case of superstition. Surely, if a simply sighting meant a village would be wiped out, there would be no more villages. Rare elder dragons they may be, but Alia seems to have no trouble running into them," Ojpin noted. "Exactly. Especially since there's only 3 villages in all of the New World, if you count the research base," Katana added. "That's a relief," John said. "I always kind of liked storms, so even if it does control them and make them all the time, I'm fine with that," Pyrrha stated. "But what he does have very much an adept, surgical touch with is his mastery of the winds that gives him the Tempest of Wind moniker that even children know to be wary of. His entire body, while clad in a suit of near-impervious plate, is porous, tiny little holes running through his entire system, allowing air to freely flow through him. It can then be redirected, stored in great air sacs and redistributed and powered to his mouth to be purposed in great blasts akin to air cannons, shattering bone with the sheer force of impact and sending hunters spiraling away, carried to their dooms upon a lofty breeze." Rage explained as Alia masterfully rode upon the beast's back as it thrashed frantically to get her off, before a video of an air cannon obliterating a small hut similar to an outhouse was shown. "A wind dragon. That's so awesome," Ruby said. "The Fall Maiden was using wind to hold herself in the air. I may have to try that out as well," Cinder theorized, raising a hand and creating a bit of swirling wind. "Oh, my gosh. That air cannon is so awesome. It almost wrecked that shed as good as my grenades," Nora said. "Maybe if it can tone down the air just right, it could make a nice air dryer. It'd be great after a swim in the pool," Coco said, thinking about how she'll likely be spending a lot more time around the pool with her tidal Najarala. But by far, his most potent weapon forged of air, is to summon tornadoes. Spinning the blasts, swirling upon impact with the ground and growing as it reaches high, it turns into a vortex of destruction. Whether they be colossal, designed to pen in whatever the Kushala has in its sights, making mere movement about the battlefield nigh impossible, or whether they be more directly offensive, streaking towards enemies, aiming to rip them apart with the razor winds. Rage warned of Kushala's deadliest ability as Alia was shown fighting Kushala Daora in both the New and Old Worlds, the one in the New World creating a massive tornado that stayed in one spot, while the one from the Old World made a smaller tornado, but this one actually moved towards Alia, forcing her to dive out of the way. They were all shocked at the fact the creature was able to effortlessly create and control tornadoes, actual natural disasters. Kushala can create tornadoes? That makes sense actually, Weiss said, shocked at first, before gradually accepting it. I mean, we all saw that it can control wind. So it's only logical that it can make multiple tornadoes effortlessly. Emerald agreed. Sir, I trust you wouldn't think of sending your Kushala out to make tornadoes on our students' training missions, to increase the difficulty? Glinda questioned, already suspecting that's something the headmaster might try. The children are here for experience, Glinda. And I can think of few other things that would test their experience and gain them more of it than a massive tornado. Ojpin said. I'm really starting to think he's trying to kill us. reinstated in fear. One thing, though, is for sure, never try to have a conversation near a Kushala Daora. Rage declared, before the image of a tornado was shown in the center of the screen, while Rage put on a small skit of two men screaming incomprehensibly, barely audible over the roaring winds. 2. The teens and some adults laughed at this bit, but Winter looked thoughtful for a moment. That could make fighting Kushala difficult if you're in a team and trying to give orders, she noted. The simplest solution would be earpieces, but with intense winds, there's no guarantee they would stay in very well, Penny suggested. Back to the drawing board, Ruby said. Duh, sign language, hello. Neo reminded all of them, doing several sign gestures. Dummies, she signed. But if blasts of wind and tornadoes encircling everywhere wasn't irritating enough. Well, since his body is essentially a living wind machine, he can almost passively send violently quick swirls of air spiraling round him, creating an almost vortex-like shield that repels any that would come too close, from arrows bouncing harmlessly away, to hunters being flung backwards for having the audacity to stand so close to one so regal. It is an achievement for a hunter to even land a blow on Kushala Daora, let alone slay one. Rage explained Kushala's greatest defense, as Alia indeed tried approaching the beast several times, only for the wind to force her back. Well, that's annoying, John said grumpily, knowing he'd probably never land a hit on the beast. And that is why most of us have guns. Arrows may bounce again, but bullets are probably another story, Blake said with a smirk. But I doubt regular bullets would do much to its metal skin, Blake. Perhaps Yang and Nora's explosives or Cinder's fireballs could work, though, Pyrrha theorized. Very impressive, students. Already coming up with ways in which to fight these creatures, Ojpin praised. But that definitely means it would make a great airdryer. Just hold on to something and have it use that wind aura. If you don't got flying, the water all over you sure will, Coco joked. Fortunately then, his body is a double-edged dragon? Kinda works. The point is, as the breeze can so drift through, well, so can a lot of other things, namely, poison. Toxins, if they are introduced to his system, will spread with rapidity and are quick to encompass his entire being. He then is betrayed by his most potent adaptations. This sends him into shock, shutting down his windy organs and having him force all focus into repairing and surviving this biological warfare, disabling his aura of wind. Rage alerted them to the counter of the ability while Alia continued to fight the beast. Ah, the poor thing. Who would do something so cruel? Velvet asked. Well, you must remember, Miss Scarlatina, they can and clearly are a threat, especially in the old world, so hunters need every advantage they can get against them, Glinda reminded them. Have we ever tried poisons against the Grim? Ironwood asked. Well, a Beowulf ate my flask once with some top-shelf bourbon in it, so they don't get alcohol or metal poisoning, Crow stated. Perhaps we should stick to the methods we know for a fact that work, Cinder advised. Kushala's wind then, can also take on an icy touch, inflicting sheer cold and freezing hunters to the bone. For some, they are able to cool the air internally to add this frosty touch, others may only do so if the environment is accommodating, for the blasts he fires very much mirror the temperature of his surroundings. There is a range of intensity to be found across individual members of the species and the terrain they inhabit, some putting hunters into a frozen prison, others simply causing them to shiver and slow. And it is not limited to ice, for a Kushala's flame picks up whatever is underneath it. And if that happens to be lava and flame, well, then you have one hell of a way to toast your marshmallows. Rage explained the delicate differences between the abilities of different Kushala as Alia was shown observing Kushala in both the Old and New Worlds once again, before Kushala in the New World was seen in battle with a Lunastra, creating a tornado that passed over a patch of Lunastra's flames, igniting the entire tornado into a beautiful blue vortex of flame. Hearing how it can also manipulate the coldness in the air, both amazed them, but left the Atlesians with a disturbing thought. Wait, if that's all true then, could that mean if this dragon was an atlas, it could make the already freezing winds colder, and possibly lethal? Winter asked worriedly. Ironwood seemed a bit intimidated, but cleared his throat. Even if it can, I'm confident that our city's heaters would be able to protect both the people of Mantle and Atlas. Although, to be safe, perhaps we should consider making hard light walls for Mantle as well. He decided. Agreed. Weiss and Penny said fearfully, concerned that the dragon may even be able to freeze Penny's machinery. Ruby and Cinder were in awe once the tornado picked up the fire, however. So pretty. Ruby said with stars in her eyes, leaning against Cinder. It's beautiful. I think I love it. Cinder said, almost hypnotized by the beauty of the fiery tornado. Well, Miss Fall, perhaps if the occasion ever calls for it, our monsters can collaborate and use this attack on the battlefield. Ozpin suggested. Finally, then, Kushala's favorite little trick is to take to the sky himself, kind of all the time. And hide within his tornadoes, concealing him from sight, allowing him to strike suddenly and without warning. And in the air, he truly is king, able to combat and send tumbling to ground, even the rat halos himself, with very little effort involved. When you control the currents. Well, you control the sky. Outside of the Fatales and Black Dragons, there is but one being who is more than a match for Kushala in the air. Rage declared as a dark, stormy sky was shown with a giant, terrifying beast in the center of the screen, everything too dark to make out anything significant, before it let out its massive and beautiful, yet ear-piercing roar. What was that? Winter asked in shock and awe. Its name is all I will tell you. Amatsumagetsuchi. Katana said ominously. Everyone felt a chill go down their spine as she said the name. That's quite the mouthful. Something tells me it's a big deal to have earned a name like that. Crow stated. Well, if it's stronger than Kushala, then it must be something special. At least another elder dragon. Blake theorized. For hunters, though, this proves to be a slight problem. Rage explained as Alia was seen running in slow motion with a song to emphasize how much time she was wasting by being unable to fight the beast as it stayed in the air, out of her reach. Come the fuck down. Alia screamed up at the beast, stomping her foot impatiently while waiting for the creature to properly re-engage her. Ugh, I know the feeling. I mean, I know most of our weapons also count as guns. But it's so annoying fighting a flying Grim that stays in the air all the time. Yang complained. I know, right? And I don't even have any ranged weapons to hit them with. Neo complained. That just means the two of us need to work harder. Right, Neo? John asked. Yeah. The former mute agreed. Or you could just, get guns. It's what they're there for, to reach things with, can't Emerald reminded them. Past that, though, he's no slouch in the physical side. Granted, outmatched by the likes of Nergigant, but when it comes to non-elder dragons, only that of the likes of Rajong or Deviljo could give him a right proper good arm wrestle. He dives, smashes, claws and aims to use the sheer bulk of his weight Y casing to crush the unworthy invaders. Whatever the case, this craftsman of storms, this artisan of air is one individualistic species, with each Kushala learning their own ways to shape the winds that they take on. You can never be quite sure just what you will be up against with every new encounter. Rage finished on the basics of the beast as Alia continued her battle against the New World Kushala. Nergigant. We've heard of him before. Back in Lunastra's lore. They eat other elder dragons, right? Cinder asked, angered at the thought of the beast attacking her Lunastra. Yeah, but remember, they're going after mostly old, weakened elders. Young one in their primes could drive him off. Katana assured them. Still, wow. For only 3 things to really mess with it, it's got to be tough. Nora said. It may be pretty tough, but I still bet I could put a few dents in that armor. Yang boasted proudly. Though there is a sad end to every Kushala's tale. As they age, their shell, which is truly an organic metal, starts to rust, turning from the gray we know into a beautiful copper. Now grating flesh on mere contact, flakes dropping away, leaving what is essentially nails on the ground, impaling those that stand on them. This Kushala is more aggressive, it knows the time to shed its skin is near, and it knows that in this new, weightier carapace, it is more vulnerable, it's more sluggish in its movements and wholly unable to sneak up on potential prey, due to. Well, let's just say you can kinda tell when a rusted Kushala Daora is moving around. Rage told of the creature's shedding habits, before showing a clip of a rusted Kushala Daora on a mountain peak, hovering in the air, but every time its wings moved, a horrible creaking metal sound was heard, like a truck tailgate that had completely rusted. Everyone covered their ears at the creaking noise. Ow, my ears. Velvet cried out. Oh my god, that's painful to listen to. Coco groaned. Professor Oshpin, please be sure to stock up on WD-40 after you get your dragon. Blake pleaded. Will do, Miss Belladonna. Oshpin agreed. It then will seek a secluded alcove in order to shed in peace. This process is simply beautiful. A shimmering white sight beholds any who catches this rare and precious moment. Rage declared as a Kushala's rusted shell swelled up and burst open in the back, allowing a glorious, shining white Kushala Daora to emerge from the shell with a proud roar, accompanied by angelic music. Incredibly vulnerable, their shell, spending its only few moments soft before oxidation kicks in, hardening it and turning it into the iron wall. It really is quite something. Rage said in admiration as the skin turned from white to a lovely steel gray color, before the dragon flew off. Everyone was horrified, then greatly saddened from learning the Kushala's metal flesh eventually causes it to slowly die and freeze into a statue. The poor thing, it must be horrible to die a slow death from something that's supposed to protect you. Pyrrha said, leaning against John for comfort as he held her close. A cruel fate indeed, Miss Nikos. One I hope not to see in any lifetime. Oshpin stated. Don't worry, Oz. You'll be getting monsters on the verge of adulthood. Basically in their primes. It'd probably take your next 10 lives to reach the point the Kushala I give you reached that stage. Katana assured him. I just hope they don't feel it and they go painlessly and peacefully. Ruby said tearfully, Cinder holding her close as well as Spy licked her face clear of tears. So, that is that. I hope I didn't blow anything out of proportion. Rage joked, along with the yeah scream we all know and love. Sorry, did that take the wind out your sails? I hate myself. Rage said, instantly regretting his jokes. Young laughed at both of these puns, while a certain heiress simply sighed. The feeling is mutual. Weiss said, glaring at the screen. Why would you hate yourself, Weiss? Penny asked, deeply worried. What? No, I meant him, I was referring to hating him. Weiss explained. You really need to stop taking everything so literally. Emerald told the gynoid. An incredible dragon. Truly fascinating. Oshpin said, before getting an idea. And what do they eat exactly? He asked. Mostly meat, although they have been seen eating rock and ores. Katana explained. I see. And what about wood or paper? He asked. Katana mouthed out paper, but Glinda figured out the headmaster's plan before the demon did. You're not going to feed it your paperwork, sir. She told him sternly. Very well. He sighed in defeat. I'll just open my office window and have it send them out in a breeze. He thought. That was so cool, though. A metal dragon that can control wind. I bet it feels cold and smooth all the time. I want to press up against one. I'd feel like a refrigerator. RWBY said. And it is truly the image of strength and elegance. Not to mention, it looks more like a dragon than anything else so far. Weiss added. Not to mention, with its wind aura, standing next to it would almost feel like an air conditioner. It would be the perfect lounging companion. Ren noted. And now, it's the general's turn, I do believe. He's certainly been waiting patiently and has waited long enough. Winter declared. The ice demon sighed. I guess you're right. Good thing this isn't going to your current timeline counterpart. He doesn't deserve this creature, but you still do. General Ironwood, I give you the B-52, the living jet bomber, Betelgeuse. Katana declared.